So first I'd like to explain why I'm sitting down. A few days ago I found out that I have plantar fasciitis, so I can't stand for long periods of time or anything like that. So that's why I'm sitting down, and that's why I had a little bit of a weird angle. But anyways, the horror genre has made people's adrenaline levels rise ever since its inception with The Short, The House of the Devil, in 1896. I have been an avid horror fan ever since I was a little kid, and my mom and I watched the movie Friday the 13th when I was 8 years old. I chose to use my second critique for this final project, which included dramatism and the movie Escape Room, and I wanted to add a text to it, so I used another horror movie. I used Us. And I want to discuss some of the similarities between these and the significant difference that I see, along with incorporating some of the concepts of dramatism briefly, and with a small summarization of the movies so that's easier to follow along. So as for the summarization, in the movie Us, we open up with a family in their summer home in Santa Cruz, and they go to the fair with their daughter. The daughter runs off, goes into this house of mirrors, and she finds her tethered. Now, tethered are clones made by the government of everyone on the surface, and they live under the sewers. They live in squalor. They are only able to eat rabbits. They can't talk. They can only make sounds. They do everything that their originals do on the surface, and they need to have someone to follow in order to not do what the copies do on the surface, or what the originals do on the surface. And so Addie, as a child, goes into this, her tethered, kidnaps her, takes her under the sewers, chains her up with all the other tethered there, and replaces her as Addie on the surface. So now she's Addie on the surface, while the original Addie is under the sewers with all the other tethered, and now her name is Red. Her name is Red. And 30 years later, it jumps. The movie does. And Addie brings her family to this summer house, and Red has been planning for all these years to bring the tethered to the surface, and every tethered kills their original self so that the tethered can take over, because Red is looking for revenge. And then in Escape Room, we see 6 survivors come together in Mino's escape rooms, and they are brought there because they think they're going to win $10,000 if they make it through all the rooms without giving up. But little do they know that they're all going to die. And they're going to die because Mino's escape rooms is really something for higher society people like government officials, doctors, lawyers, and they pay to have these escape rooms built in order to see different groups of people die. And so at the end of the movie, there's 2 survivors, and the game master is supposed to kill these people who survive at the very end when they come out. But the 2 survivors kill the game master. The protagonist, Zoe, finds out where the headquarters is, gets them plane tickets to go and stop them so that they don't do this again, but then they intercept this and make another escape room in the airplane that they are flying in, and that is the end of the movie. So now first I want to talk about the similarities and discuss the people of power and how they used guilt in the movie Escape Room, because they bring all these people together. They have to survive the puzzles, have to survive each room, and they make the characters have choices that could kill the other characters. And that's what happens in some of the rooms. They make choices that kill off the other characters. And then in the movie Us, we see the government trying to reach perfection by building these clones and trying to be able to control everyone on the surface. And then we also have some strong independent women who are our protagonists in these movies. in Escape Room, like I mentioned already, we have Zoe. In Us, we have Red and Addie. They're the two protagonists in Us. And Red uses redemption with the tethered because she brings all the tethered to the surface to try and make them have a better life. They want to kill off their originals so that they're able to not live in squalor anymore, and she wants to get revenge on Addie for what she did to her as a child. And now I want to talk about the significant difference that I found. And I think that it was the two major groups that we have within these movies. So in Escape Room, we have these strangers coming together to survive the puzzles and just survive all the rooms. And they also have one thing in common with them all being lone survivors, which shows a little bit of identification because they're all able to have this commonality with each other because they all survived tragic accidents and they were the only ones who did. But then in Us, we have a family, and I think it's easier to kind of relate to them more because as you watch the movie, you're able to see how that family survives and thrives, and then you can kind of relate to see how your family might do that in that type of situation as well. And I think that these movies contributed to the horror genre in a very large aspect. And I think that the similarities between these two movies really shows how far the horror genre has come in incorporating society and government and how we see everyone and how we would handle certain types of situations. And the same thing with the difference that I mentioned. Bring groups of people together in order to survive certain types of situations. Now, Escape Room and Us show us how people are able to put their differences aside, put their arguments aside, and come together in order to do one thing: live. They both show us how the human race would be able to come together and survive and thrive.